Roberto De Zerbi's Brighton have been one of the most exciting and tactically innovative teams in the Premier League this season, and even look dark horses to sneak into that last Champions League place. However, that's now come crashing down after they ran into a footballing force they simply could not deal with. Sean Dyche's Everton, who were literally in the relegation zone. So how does a team of absolutely fantastic players with a frankly genius tactical approach get destroyed by what a lot of people would generously call quite old-fashioned football? Well, Roberto De Zerbi, my friend, you just got diced. Alright, so a little bit of a primer for this. I'm going to show you how Brighton set up and why it's dead clever. And I do want to do a much bigger video on this at some point, but this is like the cliff notes. So this is specifically Brighton last night. They've done a little bit of rotation off the back of the Manchester United game, but all their most important players are there. Lewis Dunk, Estepinian, Pascal Gross, McAllister, Caicedo, Matoma, almost all the players who make Brighton what they are were in that team. So they always tend to set up in this 4-2-3-1 shape, and their entire mindset is just, well, come on then. They won't push their fullbacks on. Both of these two centre midfielders are designed to just kind of sit a bit, and with patience you can barely comprehend, all 7 of these players will simply just knock the ball around in their own defensive third. Quite happily. And when I say quite happily, this man, Lewis Dunk, brace yourself, has had more touches of the ball in the Premier League than any other player this season. That is how patient they can be with the ball. He attempts something like 90 passes every single game. He receives the ball something like 80 times every single game. These are like the top numbers in the entire division because Brighton are just so happy to just pass it around between all 7 of these players to invite the opposition to try and press them. What they basically want the opposition to do is wind up in a situation where they've pushed all the way up the pitch and are now man for man with all 6 of these players. And if that happens, one of 2 things is then possible. Either A, because they're all so good on the ball, and the fact the goalkeeper effectively gives you a man advantage in that situation, they'll be able to play out of that situation and thus bypass over half the team. Or if they can't do that, they'll wind up so deep with the opposition pressed so high that it'll create absolutely enormous amounts of space in the final third for them to go direct into. And then regardless of which 2 of these approaches end up working, all 4 of these players, they're now effectively man for man, 4-on-4 in the final third, and can use their movement to create massive pockets of space. What they love to do is they like having the wide players, usually Matoma and March. They'll push as high as possible, and both the central attacker and the centre forward, they'll drop deep, which makes the defence go, where do we go? Because then instinctively the 2 central defenders are going to want to push up to close that space down, but if you do that, you leave this entire area free, and both March, Matoma, or whoever else is playing is more than happy to run into that and receive a pass on the way. Look, case in point here is like my favourite goal anyone scored this season. 2 Brighton players just drop deep, that leaves a bit of space, someone runs into the hole and they're in. It's like the simplest thing in the world, but it's really hard for defenders to work out exactly where to go and what to do in the moment. Now there's a million other things Brighton do and it's way more complicated than this, and just the movement is worth a video in of itself, but that is fundamentally at its basic level what their system is. But we're not actually here to talk about Roberto De Zerbi's Brighton, no, we're here to talk about Sean Dyche's Everton. And what Sean Dyche did was he took a big, long, complex look at the way Brighton play and how they try and force a press and create space and do all this clever stuff and just went, no, I'm not doing that. And it might sound like the most basic thing in the world, but the one thing Brighton repeatedly struggle to do is break down teams that refuse to press. If you think about Liverpool, very much the poster boys for the high press in the Premier League, they got beat 3-0 against this system because it's pretty much tailor-made to destroy a team that wants to press you high. But likewise, if you look at where Brighton have dropped points over the last couple of months, getting beat off Forest, drawing with Leeds, etc., it's against the kind of teams who just won't play this game, who won't commit 6 men forward at any point. So it just doesn't work. So what Everton did was they just matched Brighton up in 4-2-3-1. Never looked to close the ball down in the opposition half. They barely looked to close the ball down in the middle third of the pitch as well. And when the 2 strikers would drop off trying to find space, the 2 centre midfielders, they just sit on them. That meant that Brighton could have the ball as much as they like back here, but there was virtually nothing happening in front of them that they could hit with a pass. Everton were just dropping as deep as they possibly could, going as compact and as narrow as they possibly could, and saying, okay then, if you want to have any fun here whatsoever, you're going to have to do it out wide. And that meant we basically ended up in this big mess for long periods of the game. And that meant that Brighton kept finding themselves with the ball in either this position or this position, which is bad because their wide players aren't exactly like get to the byline and put a cross in types. They're dribble into the space and get a chance on goal types. And even if they did have good delivery, they haven't got the kind of players who get into the box to win those headers. It was literally just Welbeck. That's clever. That's a very smart way of trying to deal with what Brighton like to do on the ball. That's the kind of thing that can get you a hard-fought 0-0 draw. But of course, and if you've not actually seen the score yet, I can't believe I'm going to be the one to tell you this, they didn't get a 0-0 draw, did they? They scored 5 f***ing goals. And almost all of them started life from this exact situation. And while terrible nerds like me will tell you that you get these advantages by, dropping deep and creating overloads and inverting your fullbacks and just generally overcomplicating everything, what geniuses like Sean Dyche will do is they will just simplify it. And the way that Mensa member Sean Dyche was able to get the lowest scoring team in the league to score 5 past Brighton was by identifying that the main advantage they had was they're probably a bit tired. You see, Brighton got a sensational victory against Manchester United, but one that ran for nearly 100 minutes, was going to be incredibly taxing on the legs, and they only had 3 days to recover from. Everton, meanwhile, had drawn 2-2 with Leicester City over a week ago, and that genuinely can be a massive difference maker. You see, every single team that defends deep is ultimately looking to get into the space behind, but the hard part is, how do you get into it? So what Everton did was they decided they were just going to run with it. And they were going to run with it really fast. See, with the first goal, Everton are just refusing to press up on Brighton, so it gets to the halfway line and they try to force it. They turn the ball over, and the unusual thing is not a single person tries to show short for Iwobi. Everybody who's an available option just sprints into the space behind. Calvert-Lewin takes the ball really well, and with Brighton's defenders now facing their own goal, they can't properly track Decore's run, who's left to just tap it in at the back post. For the second goal, Everton are basically just defending on the edge of their own box. They managed to turn it over through pure weight of bodies, and the first forward pass is just straight into the space Brighton have left. Him, Calvert-Lewin, Iwobi, Decore, their only thought is to run into the space behind to see if they can create a chance. Now, Brighton do try their best to get back here. They don't get completely blown open, but whether it's tired legs or tired minds, they don't successfully get every single runner, and lo and behold, there's Decore again. The third goal is obviously an own goal, and Brighton are defending, and it does probably look like it doesn't fit this pattern, but just look where this comes from. Look where the ball was turned over. Look what they did as soon as they got it. The fourth goal is easily the best example of this. Everton are defending for their lives. They've barely got out of their own box, never mind their own half, but the second they get the ball, there we are again. McNeil, Iwobi, Decore, all managing to out-sprint Brighton into the space that's been left behind. Caicedo slips over, March pulls up with a muscle injury, and with the defense just absolutely all over the place, they're able to just walk the ball in. Do you want to guess what the fifth goal was, or we're all just kind of with it now? Yeah, there we are. Space being ran into, and every single Brighton player looking like they want to be sick. Zerbi made a handful of changes between the Man United game and the Everton game, so clearly he was aware of a bit of fatigue in the squad and was trying to sort of get around it, but clearly having a week off versus having like 2 and a bit days training makes a massive difference. Fundamentally, Sean Dyche looked at Brighton and he looked at Everton and he thought, well, we can't outpass them. We're probably not going to be able to defend for 90 minutes. We need to go and score goals. What do we have that they don't? And the answer was just legs. So he set his team up in such a way as to make the maximum amount of use of these legs, and fortunately for him, Everton took their chances and Brighton didn't take theirs. That is about as complex as football ever really needs to be. So in conclusion, I love you, Sean Dyche. You make my every single effort to be more intelligent make me feel more stupid. Thanks for that. But I tell you what would be really stupid, not subscribing to the world's greatest football magazine, FourFourTwo. Right now we have an incredible offer for new subscribers. You can get 3 issues for just £5, and you even get a special present just for subscribing. What kind of special present, Adam? Well, like headphones or a football shirt mystery box, something you would actually like to receive, not just tat. In the meantime though, can we get some kind of Sean Dyche loving going in the comments? That would make me feel warm and fuzzy inside, so get it all down there below, and of course don't forget to like, share and subscribe. In the meantime though, thank you so much for watching. I have been Adam Cleary, this is 442, y'all. Don't know why I said that, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye!